Joining us now, Steve Eisman. He's senior portfolio manager at Neuberger Berman, and I always hesitate to put words in your mouth, so I'm not going to do that. But let me just say this: last time, a matter of record, you said no on the banks. Do not invest in the banks. And what I interpreted that to mean was that credit conditions were tightening, even though the Fed hadn't made any moves recently, and we saw the 10-year move up above 5%. In the absence of any Fed hikes, which is sort of the market doing some of the work for the Fed. Is that true?
Kind of.
Okay.
I mean, I've said many times the banks right now are uninvestable, and it's three reasons. Number one, they're losing deposits.
Okay.
So net interest margins are going down. Loan growth is tepid at best because they're losing deposits. And the regulators have raised capital requirements again, and that's not even hit returns, and they won't hit returns till sometime next year or the year afterwards. And we haven't even had a credit cycle yet.
Does this all indicate to you that it's only a matter of time till something else breaks, like 6 months ago or whenever that was? Is that on the horizon? Or
I mean, look, if I knew what would break, I'd tell you.
Does Jay Powell think it's possible something?
I'm sure he thinks it's possible. Let me just change gears for a second. I thought the most interesting part of this earnings season was comparing Visa to TransUnion, because Visa showed the consumer is still spending, and it didn't beat volume, it didn't miss volume, it was exactly in line. So the consumer, in terms of his or her spending, is fine. But TransUnion came on and basically said that loan volume on the consumer side has collapsed. That the bank tightening, the higher rates is causing loan volume really to go down a lot. The fact that TransUnion was down 25% in one day is literally shocking, that a company like that could be down that much. But that hasn't hit the economy yet. I mean, the yin and yang is that the consumer is still healthy, but they can't spend money on big ticket items because they can't borrow. So they're spending it, and maybe that's why Starbucks was so good. They're spending it on a more expensive cup of coffee.
What I'm hearing, and it's sort of a nuance that I wasn't considering, if loan growth slows, it's not necessarily because demand is slowing with people who want loans. It could be that deposits have fled, so the banks are...
Well, the banks are tightening, and also you're not buying a house at an 8% mortgage because you can't afford it.
So in that case, it is because
yes, the part of the economy that I think is the most worrisome right now is anything that's a large ticket that the consumer needs to borrow to buy. So house, auto, solar panel, etc. Everything else seems to be doing okay on the consumer side.
When we try to, we've also had some discussions today about coincident versus leading indicators versus the rearview mirror that the Fed uses. Do you think the Fed is trying to look ahead now and finally trying to anticipate rather than react?
Yes, I do. But I listened to Powell's press conference, and I think he's just as confused by all the different data points as everybody else. Maybe that's why he wants to pause, because he doesn't know what to do.
Will there be another hike?
I have no idea.
What would you do?
I'd wait. See what the data says. You've already raised rates so much. Another 25 basis points from here is not meaningful. It's more of a messaging. So wait till you have a better clear view.
But are you expecting in a year from now that he's going to be lowering rates?
No, I don't. I don't actually think we're going to, unless we have a very bad recession, I don't think we're going to see the Fed lower rates. I think Powell is still petrified of what happened to Volcker in the early 80s.
So those folks are saying buy bonds right now, right? By 10 years, because rates are going to come down. You don't think that's the case?
I think that's way too early to make that kind of prediction. I wouldn't be doing that.
You think he's terrified of what happened to Volcker when he lowered rates?
When he lowered rates and inflation resurged, yeah. That would be the worst possible outcome that could happen to the country and for Powell's reputation. I think he lives in more fear of that than a recession.
No, that makes sense.
Couldn't you start buying banks now and buy them if they go lower? I mean, they've come down a lot, right? Still don't touch them.
One thing I've learned in my career over the years is that buying something just because it's cheap is a value trap, and shorting something because it's very expensive is a death wish. So, yes, the banks are cheap by any metric, but so what? The opposite. What do they say? The opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference. Right now, people are completely indifferent to banks. Now, maybe that's a good sign to buy them if you have a very, very long-term time horizon. But the thing that bothers me the most is that returns are going to go down just because of the increase in capital requirements. So what's your rush?
Now, is there anything to you that indicates we either avoid a recession or go into a recession in the next year?
I mean, right now, I'm still surprised by how strong the economy is, given how much rates have gone up. So I'm not willing to make any bet that we're going to go into.
Kaplan's on later, isn't he?
Yep.
Today?
Yeah.
Kaplan, former Dallas.
I know him personally.
Yeah. I had a sort of an awakening when he said, we're spending a lot of money fiscally in the economy. As long as we're doing that, the economy's not going to slow. That's
He
part
could
of
be
it.
right.
That's part of it.
I mean, the fiscal stimulus from all the infrastructure stuff that I've spoken at hasn't even hit.
Yeah, that's
Hasn't been spent.
over a period
It's not
of
going to happen until next year.
Hey, Steve, before you go, I want to pivot the conversation 1 second, just because I know you're a major benefactor to the University of
I
Pennsylvania.
wouldn't say major, but a benefactor.
You were a significant benefactor to the University of Pennsylvania, and I believe you've gotten involved in this sort of larger debate about what's happening in universities right now.
Yes.
What's going on?
Well, I mean, your interview with Mark Rowan woke me up a bit, and my history with the University of Pennsylvania is pretty deep. I mean, I went there, my wife went there, we met there. My sister went there, my brother-in-law went there, and they met there. So a lot of members of my family have been there. I've gone back to the university many times to speak. After a couple of days after the interview, I called my contact person at the university, and I said, we have a small scholarship that we created about a dozen years ago, and I called my contact and I said I wanted our names removed from it immediately. I do not want my family's name associated with the University of Pennsylvania ever.
What was the response?
She was very nice. She understood, and she has gotten a lot of calls like that, and she said she would take care of it.
Is there anything they could do to change your mind?
Yeah, you could fire the president and the chairman of the board of trustees immediately.
I believe they're having a board meeting today.
Well, I doubt they're going to do anything, but that's the only thing that would even move me at all.
Cindy, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, this is something that's played out again and again. And Larry Summers pointed to a letter that came from the Association of University Heads in Israel today, with a long letter that they have that's out just talking about how there should be no moral equivalency when you're looking at a nation defending itself versus terrorist attacks that come through.
Let me just say one thing. One of the things that the protesters are saying, and one of the things I really sincerely believe, is that when people tell you who they are, you should believe them. And the protesters, their slogan is, "Free Palestine from the river to the sea." The river is the Jordan River, and the sea is the Mediterranean. And free Palestine from the river to the sea means get rid of all the Jews. The Nazis had a different way of saying it. It was Judenrein, no Jews. What we have in the protesters right now is dressed up in the clothing of progressivism is pure hatred of Jews. In my view, is any student who holds up a sign that says "Free Palestine from the river to the sea" should be expelled. That's not free speech. That's calling for murder.